Going to look at the different variations of how we think Spurs could look under Thomas Frank. So I'm very much looking forward to see how Tottenham could be lining up under Frank next season. The first formation we're going to look at is a 4-2-3-1.
So we know under Ange, it was more of a 4-3-3, Porro and a doggy kind of inverting like that. You had Son and Johnson really far out wide. You had Madison and the number 8 kind of filling in those spaces. You had a number 6 like this. That was kind of like what we saw under Ange. Under Frank, what I have seen from him is you have a more of a 4-2-3-1 like this. You have Johnson and Son are going to be a bit more kind of higher up and a bit more ability to kind of not hugging to the touchline. Bit more central, a bit more attacking these kind of spaces here, especially it's going to work with Sonny kind of cutting inside. What he does with his fullbacks is he kind of has asymmetrical fullbacks, similar to like what we did under Mourinho early on. He'll have one fullback with the ability to kind of bomb on and get to the byline, get forward and really push. And he'll have the other fullback kind of just hanging back a bit, like almost forming like a back three at times, so just hanging back, a bit more reserved, not really getting too far forward. Fullbacks are going to be a lot more conventional than they were under Ange Postecoglou. Ange Postecoglou, you kind of saw the fullbacks in these kind of areas, the number 10 a lot, rotational with the winger and maybe in the centre mid. Now you're going to see the fullbacks a lot more conventional, out wide, kind of attacking those kind of spaces, occasionally popping in here if the winger ever gets dragged out wide, but I think more often than not it's going to be a lot more conventional. Looking at kind of the midfield, I envisage he plays a double pivot now. He usually plays something like a Norgard and a Janelt together, or a Jensen. Someone who's a bit more of a passer like a Jensen, and then a real workhorse. Now, the problem is we don't really have that workhorse right now. We have Bentancur, who's good and can maybe do that role, but obviously I do think we probably need number 6 in that, partner Bentancur or replace him. What's quite interesting about the number 10 position, obviously Damsgaard plays in this role here. Yeah. Obviously it's going to be Madison, we're thinking, for us. So Madison, a lot of the time this season, obviously playing in that left number 10 role. So a lot of the time spent kind of in this kind of area, trying to create, link up with the winger here. What I've noticed about Damsgaard, I've looked at his heat maps over the season, and he kind of spends equal time on the left and the right. He doesn't just kind of stick to one side. Yeah. So I think Madison's going to have the freedom to kind of operate all around, I think, this kind of final third, where the space is, not married to kind of one side or the other, but kind of given the freedom to operate all around that final third. I think that'll really help him. Yeah. That'll help him find more space. Now, the striker position is quite interesting. This season, we know Frank has gone for like a Wissa type up front. Obviously, we have Solanke, who's very, very different to Wissa. If you're looking at like profiles, so we know that Frank's front three has been Mbeumo, Wissa, Sade. Sade and Son are very comparable in terms of kind of profile, like to run in behind, good finishers, get shots off in this kind of area, like to cut inside. Johnson and Mbeumo are very different profiles, I would say. Johnson, obviously we know, likes to attack the back post, good movement, but when he gets into this final third, doesn't really create much, doesn't really create separation between him and his fullback. How often do we see Johnson have a cross and it's blocked? Happens so often, right? Yeah. So he also likes, what I've noticed, Frank, is he very much likes inverted wingers. He doesn't like having players on that side play on the same side. Even when Wissa was a winger, he always played on the left. Sade always plays on the left. Mbeumo always plays on the right. He doesn't like wingers to play on the right side. So what does that mean for Johnson? Obviously, we know he wanted Johnson, but did he want him to play on the right? Is that just something he's playing? Are we going to see Johnson more on the left? Are we going to see Johnson maybe where he profiles, in my opinion, which is similar to a Wissa up front? Are we going to see him more in that Wissa role potentially? Because I think Johnson and Wissa have very similar qualities in terms of good strength, good movement, running in behind, pace, good finish. That's kind of similar. So Is he going to rebrand him? But then
it's true.
you have Solanke there.
But when Brentford had Ivan Toney, he played Ivan Toney in the 9, who profiles a bit similar to Dom Solanke, and he had Wissa out wide in those moments. So I think with him having Solanke now, I think he'll use him a bit similar to how he used Toney, and then he'll use Johnson out wide for the most part. When we go into other formations, we can talk about Johnson and the differences there. But in this formation particularly, I do still think he'll use Johnson out wide predominantly. Maybe, you know, he can make changes in game and you'll see Johnson centrally in some moments in the game, but I still think he'll prefer with Solanke and use him a bit similar to the way he used Toney.
But I actually think the more I think about it, I actually think we might see a return of Decky more out wide. Like here. I've got a feeling, in terms of the profile to Mbeumo, someone who can very good create separation, very good at good upper body strength, and good in these kind of areas, little dinks to the back post, using his left foot, creating a bit of space and getting a ball in, which Johnson isn't very good at. Decky might be the guy who actually can play this role a lot better, because under Ange, we know he's kind of there, stuck out wide, asked to kind of beat players, get to that byline, cut it back. We know that's not Decky's role. But if Decky is playing more like Mbeumo, kind of a bit higher up, kind of asked to kind of hang there a bit, get the ball, just get to this kind of area, create separation, and either go for a shot or a little dink to the back post, isn't that much more his game? So that's kind of the 4-2-3-1, how I kind of see it going. He could even use Son up front maybe sometimes, could use Johnson up front. Instead of Solanke, if he wants to go maybe a bit more counter-attacking, maybe away at a City, he maybe doesn't use Solanke, just goes guys who are going to attack the space, like a Wissa.
Yeah, I think away at a City, he'll go 3 at the back.
So that's the formation the season before last that he really liked to use. So he would basically be a 3-5-2. So basically what you would do is let's take away Kulusevski and let's put in a Danso. How it will kind of look is fullback like this, Romero, Danso, Porro, but very similar to how he plays when he plays 4 at the back. It's kind of asymmetrical. One of the wing backs is given real license, like a Keane Lewis Potter would be on the left.
Yeah.
He was almost like a winger, basically, barely even coming back that much. And the other wing back, still quite advanced, but not as advanced, would hang around these kind of areas, still be a bit more reserved. You would have kind of like a 3, like Bergvall, you got Madison there, and then you'd have Solanke, and you'd have a Son, which would be a Toney and a Wissa, or Toney and Mbeumo up front in these kind of areas, and you'd basically play a 3-5-2. That's how he played a lot of his season before last when they finished 16th, and they were quite more pragmatic. He played that kind of role, and these 3 would basically cover a lot of these areas, and obviously be very compact, be looking to catch out the opposition, win the ball up in these kind of areas, play it very quickly to these wing backs, or more importantly, very direct to these attackers, who a lot of the time, because there's 2 up front, you know, up against 2 centre backs, looking to get them in behind, looking to play early balls into space, and especially against teams like City and Liverpool, who like to commit a lot of risk, right? They would make Wissa and Toney would very much be making those runs in behind, and these 3 midfielders' job is basically just be a bit simple, make it very simple, win the ball directly into the attack, and that they'd be very, very direct. And these centre backs will be very compact together, but also with the ability to kind of step out and defend those wide areas as well. And that's kind of the 3-5-2 I saw a lot. But I envisage if it was at Spurs, maybe a Bergvall comes in instead of like a Basuma. And so you just have that little bit more quality there. Something like that. Or maybe even a Madison as well, depending on the opposition. And that's kind of how you can see. And obviously he had Ivan Toney there to hold the ball up. And actually, more importantly, to flick balls on. They would go long to Ivan Toney, and he would basically flick balls on to Mbeumo and Wissa with his head and get them running in behind. And Son, he's played a lot of 3-4-3, which is you got Danso coming in, you take the Madison out. You have Johnson on the right, Solanke on the... Take out Bergvall, put on Son. And then you've got a good 3-4-3 as well, which he's deployed quite a lot at his time. Whistler was very much on the left. It was like Tony up front and Mbeumo on the right. And also, we know that Bentancur and Sarr have both played that role under Conte, and especially Bentancur was very good in that role, in a 3-4-3.
Yeah.
I do think you'd have to partner him properly in this position with a Sarr, just so you have that legs in the middle. Maybe a Bergvall, you can get away with it. I don't think you can get away with a Madison there. You'd probably have to put a Sarr there, or another defensive midfielder next to a Bentancur. But we know that role really, Bentancur can thrive in that role.
To give you an idea of like how often he actually changes up his formation and tactics game to game, it's actually mad. Like I'm just going through his games now, looking at Frank, what he's deployed in the big games, and it's hard to find two of the same formation. It really is. He really comes up with individual plans for each and every game. I mean, first or second game of the season, he went to Anfield, deployed a 4-4-2. Then he went to the Etihad and played a 3-5-2. Then he went to the Emirates, like I said, and played a 4-4-2 as well. But he's deployed so many different formations over the course of the season. It's actually mad.
Yeah, and that's one of his biggest strengths. He's very tactically flexible. He changes the formation mid-game a lot, and game to game, and depending on the opposition. And so all of these different formations are all different ways you're likely to see Tottenham kind of line up, I think, next season. It's going to be very interesting to see what his preferred formation, how he profiles his squad. Does he think with what squad better suited to a back three? Does he stick with a back four? I reckon for the start, he'll stick with the back four, because I think this season he moved to a back four for Brentford because he wanted to be more attacking. And I think he's going to do that with Tottenham as well.
I don't know if it's about like just sticking to something. I just feel like he's just going to come up with plans for each and every specific game. I think maybe initially he might just doesn't want to upset the kind of routine and apple cart, but as he progresses into the season, I think you'll start seeing a variation of all different kind of formations.
I know, I'm just saying, I think at the start, I think his main formation, the one that you're going to see in most games, I think is going to be a back four,
which was the most that we saw from Brentford last season.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the same for Tottenham.
Yeah.